Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. U.S. and China are literally at each other, with neither of them backing down, trumping each other over tipping tariff hikes. Latest is the United States that has announced tariffs up to 245% on China from the present 125%. Though there's still confusion if the 245% includes hike post the Trump tariff announcement of 125% alone, or an accumulation of tariffs still now on China cumulatively by the United States. But that aside, the response from China this time was measured, in contrast to the earlier reciprocal tariff hike of 125% by China on imports from United States. Tariff and trade wars have no winner. China does not want to fight these wars, but is not scared of this, is what a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson has said. Much contrast from its earlier position. Does this mark a shift at all? Remember, this comes after China not only curtailed imports from the United States, but also said it won't have any further deliveries of Boeing jets, pausing even purchases of aircraft-related equipment from the United States. What does this leave the world with, particularly India? Remember, world is more uncertain, particularly about what may be seen as fears of declining jobs, inflation, recession, and so much more. But unlike other emerging Asian economies that are overly reliant on exports, India's consumer-led economy gives it a stronger hand in any trade talks with the United States. And it's not just about the United States. Remember, India has a very diverse basket when it comes to exports as well as imports. Could this really be to India's advantage? I'm being joined by Vibhuti Jha, who's a former Republican candidate for the New York Assembly, Professor Madhav Nalapat, Vice Chair, Manipal Advanced Research Group, as well as Kishore Subramanian, who's a financial expert. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining me. Let me just start straight with you, Mr. Vibhuti Jha. How are you looking at what's really happened? Firstly, do we have clarity? Is it a cumulative 245%, or is it a fresh up to 245% hike that really United States has announced? Notwithstanding that, where is this going to end?
Thank you, Sneha, for having me. Good to see my friend Mr. Nalapat here. So good morning to you too from New York. Wanted to tell you something very simple, that if I had known about the clarity that was going on, I would be making lots of money on the stock market. So the situation is the clarity is missing. That's one part. But let's put it in this particular way, very simple. Tariff is not something that America discovered or Trump found out suddenly. It has been in play, global trade. It has been in play for a long, long time. So the issue here is very important. This disaster against China is a great opportunity for India. The question is whether if India is ready to step in, supply that part of it or not. The second part is very important here. And it takes a little, I will take a step back. Remember when USSR collapsed, nobody missed Russia, USSR, because we were not consuming a single item made in Russia. Only thing we knew about Russia was Lada car and Sputnik spaceships. Fast forward, China configured that out in the geopolitical play that US is going to come after them. And they played it in such a way that they got the maximum, they captured the word greed from America, the shareholder value, profit margins of American companies. China opened their entire shores for all these purposes. Today, what Trump realized, America manufactures virtually nothing. Even the brand items of shirt, pants, and this, they are made in Philippines, made in Vietnam, made in Bangladesh, made in Pakistan, and varieties of places. So what has happened is America has lost its soul, which resided in manufacturing. And that's where Trump is trying to talk about that, hey, you can't have an indiscriminate levels of tariffs, and I'm going to prevent America from becoming a dumping ground. And that's where he has introduced the word reciprocal. Come and talk to me. I'm not doing it unilateral. So this is what is happening. I don't think China is trumping Trump. What is happening is that China, about whom we know very little, is getting isolated. And the Chinese have a very low likability factor. So the many countries in the world are happy that there is a man who is taking up a country that enforces their killer contracts and their sovereign funds and buys them up. So there is a very interesting geopolitical play here. Rates ko jane dijiye. This will come and go.
Absolutely.
70%. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Let's just face it also, Mr. Jha, while you are saying this, that China, not many people like China, the truth is the global economy right now, as it were, or if I can say global economies literally, are worried. They are concerned not only about the uncertainty, but about so many other aspects, including jobs, including recession, including inflation, and this is across countries for that matter. I'll get to Kishore Subramanian in a bit for that. But Professor Madhav Nalapat, let's look at this. I mean, yes, there's much for India to win. There's much for India to gain. But would you agree that possibly the diverse basket that really India is looking at right across from United States to China may really be its biggest strength?
Well, look, I can tell you that this is India's platinum opportunity. What is needed is changes in regulations, changes in taxes. The tax system must be made much simpler, and there must be less of the stick and more of the carrot in it. The regulations have got to make manufacturing and services much easier. That shift has to take place. Assuming it does during Modi 3.0, India will be in the same position that China was during the first Cold War with the USSR and the US. And China became a superpower riding on the back of the US. Now, I'm not saying that India will become a superpower riding on the back of China, but certainly I would like to say if India plays its cards right, definitely India will emerge as a very attractive alternative destination for investment that is having to leave China. The reality is the Trump administration is aware in a way that the Biden administration was not, that China, the way it is structured, the CCP, is an existential threat to the United States. It challenges the dominance of the United States as number one position. And if that dominance goes, so goes the dollar as a global reserve currency. So goes the ability of the Federal Reserve to keep printing trillions of dollars to fund the deficit. In effect, the US will implode on itself. And I think that is what the Chinese are aiming at. So there's no competition left in the field for them, except, of course, coming to India. So far as India is concerned, quite honestly, the choice is very clear. And I think Prime Minister Modi has already made the right choice of the United States. India's response to tariffs was very, very measured and mild. And as a consequence, very important talks are underway. And there are a few issues here and there regarding visas that will be cleared up. But I think an India-US FTA is very much on the cards. The reality is we are in a new Cold War that's as existential as the earlier Cold War was, except that this time it's with China and not Russia, then called the USSR. I wish every country that is allied to the US understands that. Many Europeans till now have shown no sign that they do, but President Trump does. President Trump's key cabinet picks do.
Right.
And frankly, you're not going to see an end of this because, frankly, that President Trump's administration realizes that either China wins or the US wins. And if China wins, there goes the dollar, there goes a lot of the prosperity potential and present in the US. As far as India is concerned, it makes perfect sense for us to align with the other largest democracy in the world rather than with an authoritarian state that, frankly, Shreya, has not shown any goodwill to India. Thank you.
Okay. Kishore Subramanian, if you could come here at this point. I mean, let's look at the facts. There's a lot that's being said for India. You heard both the panelists speak about it. In fact, many experts are saying, despite the hikes, but the way India has positioned itself, the way India has negotiated, is negotiating, really leaves it in a vantage point. But here's the question. I mean, look at how much India is manufacturing dependent. Say a 15% compared to many other Asian economies that are far more manufacturing dependent, say a 25% to 30% across the countries. Is India really ready to attract what may be China's loss or losses of other Asian countries which are really trying to work towards FTAs with the United States? Why I'm asking you that? One, red tapeism. A lot has said that that has changed. 2, jobs. 3, skills. 4, the pace at which it's working on the ground despite what is being said. Is India ready for this?
So good evening to my panelists. Thank you for having me on the panel. I have to be candid. See, I am pro-government, this particular government, on many facts. I think the intent is right. But if I have to be very candid as a citizen and as an entrepreneur, is India ready? India is mentally ready. Is India physically ready? No, India is not ready. The babudam and the red tapeism and the bureaucratic hindrances that we have got in setting up enterprises is phenomenal. It may be a totally different ballgame when it comes to a FTA or a foreign firm coming to Indian shore and doing it. But you please understand, the entire ecosystem with which we work is not so easy. Let's understand some fundamental differentials between China and India. India is the world's largest democracy. So the moment that we use the word democracy, it comes with its own pitfalls of strikes, buns, hartal, courts, cases, land acquisition issues and stuff. 2, as much as the central government wants it, land is a state subject. And that is very critical when you want an ecosystem of manufacturing to be transferred. Point number 3, India today is the largest consumer. The moment you become a great market and a largest consumer, you also start dictating terms of the economic front. You're not going to take it lying down like a Bangladesh saying that, okay, I'm going to give everything free, somehow do business with me. India is not that situation. So it's not going to be easy for an FTA where, it will be lopsided and we'll open our doors completely. Point number 4, you have to understand the ecosystem in China, which is in existence, is not built overnight. You can't build these systems. So if you start today and you want to even match 30, 40, 50% of what China has done, it takes 15, 20 years in a non-democratic, autocratic setup. In a democratic setup, it takes much more. Yes, India gets its fair share. India has been strategic and moving fairly in understanding how to do its due diligence and not rub on the wrong side of America. I appreciate the government for that. I think we've got some strategic advantages. We will use that to an extent. But if we are just thinking that, all that manufacturing we can ship to China +1, we are that +1, and we're going to just bombard and become the next China, we are living in a utopian world. That's not going to happen. Some gains India will have. India can be smart and make that sum to a reasonable percentage. Will it be 80, 90%, and will China also deadlock, lose its battle? I don't think so. As much as it's autocratic, China also knows that the interest of its own country and people and welfare and economy is primary. As much as Mr. Donald Trump thinks America first, China thinks China first, India thinks India first, it's a deadlock situation. I think the best gainer would be India, but strategically it's not going to be easy. But what I see in the long term is that shift of power, depreciation of dollar, loss of supremacy for America, and India gaining over a period of 2 decades is a reality.
Vibhuti Cha, I think best time to get you in. You've had quite a critique from Kishore Subramanian, not going very well for United States as he seems, and not just United States, but across the countries for that matter. Do you want to respond to how he sees, including a depreciating dollar, which is not just really bad news for United States, but others as well?
And not really. I think Kishorji has pointed out the bleeding obvious. And I have said this many times on Times shows that Trump recognizes that we are in deep trouble. America is in deep trouble unless the problem is fixed. And the fixing of the problem will happen not until we begin to manufacture again, because that took the soul of America out. Remember one thing, a geopolitical fact which Professor Nalapat would be knowing very clearly, no country in the world has ever won an international conflict or war depending on other people's money and not having a manufacturing base. This is a very critical reality, which Trump realizes that a $36 trillion deficit, the American ability to print their way out of by printing notes is not going to solve the problem. And that's what is important because, as rightly said, China has entered virtually every household in America, from garden chairs to shoes, including 9/11 memorabilia. So think about it from that point of view. China's absence will be felt very badly by American businesses because many businesses thrive on Chinese relationship. But I want to say something here. I think I agree with Kishore that India has a great opportunity to build the infrastructure, but are we ready to snap it up? That's what is important. I remember, if you are able to listen to Nancy Pelosi's speech in 1996 in U.S. Congress, when she was advocating a reciprocal tariff on China, that was the day when Chinese trade surplus with U.S. hit about $40 billion. I was here in my role as a banker and an economist, student of economics, and American businesses and people were asking me, please take at least 10% of what is going to China. This was the exact words. These were the exact words. Please ask your government to take at least 10% of what is going to China. You know what I was told by the Indian government of that time and bureaucracy? Not interested. 2 words, not interested. Just imagine the opportunity lost for India. If had we
Kishore, come in at this point, Kishore Subramanian. A very interesting point being made by Vibhuti Jha. Do you see any change?
I completely agree with Mr. Vibhuti Jha. And let me tell you 3 important points. One, if India can tell that you can launch a business within 72 hours with auto licensing in any field, point number 1. Point number 2, if you can say that the basics of getting GST, anything is bribe-free. Point number 3, if you can ensure that for scale operations or manufacturing, land acquisition is moved from a state subject to a central subject with absolute transparent and fair compensation, and it cannot be challenged in the court, mark my words, the ecosystem will change. These are the 3 things you require. There are many other things that come along with it, but these 3
I agree with your 3 points, but let's face it, Kishore Subramanian, at a point where India is facing a battle of autonomies, I don't really think land acquisition going from state to center really should matter, because development has 2-fold. One for the country as a whole and one for the state where it is being led. So I don't really see land acquisition really being an issue if there is economies of scale as well as investments coming in from outside. Why would that be an issue?
No.
The ecology has to be taken. People have to be taken together for sure.
Yeah, please understand that you can take people, you can take ecology, you can take anything. By the time you take everything, everything is gone. Your business is out of your hand. So please understand, China has built bridges and China has built structures by not pleasing everybody. If in this democratic setup you're going to please 10 crore people for every damn thing, an airport in Tamil Nadu is supposed to be coming up 25 years ago. Land near Parandur Airport, Sri Perambudur was speaking 25 years ago with a proposal. Till date, the first brick is not done. Please don't tell me that land acquisition is not a problem. If the core industry of manufacturing, which is the backbone of any economy in terms of the basic hardcore meat of the economy, if that is not done, and land is the critical part of that. Because see, your labor laws can be easily fixed because it's citations. If it requires skilled labor, you can always teach them and come. We are talking of different problems. But land is the fundamental thing. To set up something, you need land. And please understand that
Professor Madhav Nalapat, come in at this point, Professor. Kishore Subramanian making a very interesting point. He's literally pitching this as democracy versus autocracy. I mean, by no way we would want to shun away from our responsibility as democracy. But the question is, I mean, India has a vantage point of being such a massive consumer as well. It's not just about manufacturing. It's not just about exports. It's also the strength it brings with being a massive consumer for that matter. How strong do you see what Kishore Subramanian is saying at this point. I mean, to be able to actually bring in the strategic advantage to the practical repercussions.
I like the fact that Kishore is focusing on some positive, definitely negatives that he's absolutely right about many of them. But the reality is, please understand, when we remember when those, I mean, it happened a very long time ago, probably before all our time, before skyscrapers came on the horizon. And when skyscrapers came, the amount of people, the number of people who could be on a particular area of land multiplied immensely. So the reality of the situation is, yes, land is a problem, but I'd like to point out another thing. State governments have got to compete in the electoral market. And unless they do well financially, unless they do well in providing jobs, they will lose the election. Even the BJP came within a whisker of losing government in the 2024 election. So obviously, there's need to buck up. So I'd like to say very clearly that please understand it's an existential situation. It's not a normal situation. It's either or. It's not me and. And the question is very clear. Either the US and its fellow democracies win, and of course, countries like Vietnam, etc. But my point is, how much can Vietnam absorb? How much can Indonesia absorb? How much can Thailand absorb? The Chinese are not worried about any of them. They're worried only about one country, and that's India. Because they see potentiality in India of the future that Kishore is probably aware of, but he doesn't believe it will be actualized. I do believe that Prime Minister Modi has understood the situation, and I do believe he will actualize the situation. And I said before, simplify regulations and make the carrots much more important than the stick in the tax system. And I remember Prime Minister Modi saying in 2014, minimum government, maximum governance. I think that's a perfect credo that we can say here.
Professor,
in 2024.
I'll have to interrupt you. I'm left with less than 2 minutes. Let me just get in quick reactions. Kishore, please go ahead. Quick rebuttal.
Sneha, we are actually having a nice debate where all of us are agreeing on most of the things. So that's good point. So let me give you 3 points, very critical points. India progressed when we moved from UPA to UPI. And this is my caption, and I take total accountability when I'm saying we moved from UPA to UPI. Let us not forget what happened when we tried to please everybody under the socialist, Nehruvian socialist regime till 91, we were bankrupt. And third, and the most important point, till 2014, 58 crore of Indians did not even have a bank account. That's the kind of progress we made, lopsided. And at one end of the pyramid, you were having huge people earning and exporting IT services, but you didn't have one side bank account. So remember, if fundamentally you have to change the structure, you will have to address the core issues and ensure that democracy is not fully playing out, but selectively, without vindicating or debarring people from exercising their basic rights. You have to be a little strict in getting your order.
You are experts, you have your opinion, but I don't believe in selective democracy for sure. But mine is not the point at this point. Mr. Jha, I can get the last response from you. The latest reaction from... No, okay, that takes us to a very different debate for that matter. But Mr. Jha, 30 seconds to you. The latest response, a very cautious response from China. Do you see that as a play down? China says, don't pressurize us.
Yeah, it is a pressure game. One has to accept it. And as we all agree here, whoever is able to withstand the pressure will eventually win. And I want to add here, India probably needs, you know, with all the democracy aside, we need some kind of an economic emergency to address real challenges in the economic field. Because many people have asked me, you always talk about me being a Republican candidate, but prior avatar is of a banker of Reserve Bank of India and American Express. So I have talked with many people in this country. They often tell me, oh, why aren't you like China? I said, yeah, Prime Minister Modi must declare India as, declare himself for Prime Minister for life, suspend all fundamental rights and move on. things will be great. They say, no, 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 no. It's good you are a democracy. So the point is, the price we pay for our freedoms is something that everybody has to acknowledge and act on it. That's what is critical for all of us here.
All right. Gentlemen, we're totally out of time. Thank you very much for your perspective. I think India prides in itself being a democracy, and I think that's our vantage point, our strength, and hope. And governments and people are only wanting to build on that. Hopefully, we'll be able to make more of a strategic win, a diplomatic win that seems to be right before us, into seeing it unfold on the ground, particularly as the world sees challenges with recession, job losses, and inflation as well. Thank you very much, all three of you, for joining me. Vibhuti Jha, Professor Madhav Nalapat, as well as Kishore Subramanian. Good evening. That's all we have for you in this bulletin. Thank you very much for joining us.